What is up, you guys? In today's video, we're going to tackle the question, is it worth it to build epoxy tables, epoxy river tables, live edge tables, these big projects? Is it worth it? Let's dive in. All right, well, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the podcast. As always, I'm your host, Zach Vaught, and I'm so glad that you're choosing to spend some time with me. Hopefully this channel and this podcast is helping you on your journey of starting and growing your custom furniture or your woodworking business. And so in today's episode, I want to dive into the question, which is a good question to ask. Is it worth it to get into the business of building epoxy or river tables? These are big projects. They're super profitable. They're also a little sketchy. So is it worth it? And so to answer the question right out of the gate, is it worth it? The answer is yes and no. Okay, so I'm going to give you some pros and some cons of focusing your time and your energy and your attention on epoxy tables or epoxy river tables. Okay, so let me give you a couple pros to building epoxy river tables. Number one is that they're expensive and you can charge a lot of money for them. Okay, you know, one table per month, that's a 8 to 10 to 12 foot epoxy river table, depending upon what wood you use, depending upon how much epoxy it is. You can charge 8 to 10 to 12 to 15 to $20,000. These are big tables, big projects. From a financial perspective, if you only sold just 1 or 2 or 3 epoxy river tables per month, you would make a killing. So financially, it makes a lot of sense if we just look at the numbers. Okay. Number two, second pro, they're beautiful and they really help your portfolio stand out. If you look at guys that only do dimensional lumber furniture that have never done anything live edge or epoxy, they're not going to have as diverse of a portfolio as somebody that also does epoxy furniture, right? That also does river tables or what have you. This shows your clientele that you do big projects, you're valuable, and what you do is good work, okay? So it really does boost your portfolio dramatically by having just a handful of these in your portfolio, okay? Now, I want to talk about the cons. What are some of the challenges, some of the reasons that you should not focus your time and energy on epoxy river tables? Number one is that they're expensive. So if you mess them up, it's really hard to recover. With dimensional lumber tables, for example, if you mess something up, generally that mistake costs you, 50 to 100 to 150 bucks, say, to replace a tabletop. Well, if you pour $2,000 worth of epoxy into a mold and you didn't get the mixture just right and it doesn't harden, that's a massive mistake. That's a $2,000 mistake. Okay, so it's very easy to make these little mistakes with epoxy river tables that can cost you a lot of money. Okay, so you need to make sure that you feel confident, and you probably need to do some test pieces that are smaller before you dive into a full-blown giant mold that you would be doing for a client or a conference table or something like that. Okay, so the second con is that they take a long time. Generally, they take a long time to build. And the reason for that is that when you pour your epoxy and it cures, it hardens, you have to flatten it. And when you flatten it, there's typically all these little microscopic holes throughout the epoxy. Sometimes not. Different people have different opinions on this, but I never had a CNC router that I could just lay the tabletop on there and it would flatten it perfectly for me. We had to build a router sled. And so it took a long time for us to flatten tabletops that were epoxy. And with that, we always had to do a lot of touch-up work with CA glue, and it takes a long time. You have to come back usually a couple different times and pour more epoxy in some of these low spots or these holes, and then coming back around the final time with CA glue and the activator, it just takes time, right? As opposed to, hey, I'm building a dimensional lumber table, and when it's done, we're spraying it, we're putting finish on it, and it's out the door. Okay, so there's a lot of waiting for things to cure. There's a lot of challenges with that. So also you have to have a pretty dust-free environment. If you're running a full-scale production shop and you've got multiple employees and you got a lot of things happening, you kind of got to stop everything when you go to pour your epoxy and get that set up. Another challenge that you have, if you have a client that requests completely clear epoxy. Now, this was one of the things that I was totally unaware of, but it's just really hard to keep things in the air out of the epoxy. So it's good to use darker colors if you're doing that. But if you have a client that's wanting a perfectly clear epoxy table, that can be challenging. Okay, so you just need to be prepared for that. Number three, I already covered this one, but I made it a point. It's just, they're kind of easy to mess up. They're very expensive. You're going to spend a lot of money on epoxy, and you have to be incredibly strategic and smart and thorough and meticulous as you do your epoxy pours, okay? So in my personal opinion, I've given you the pros, I've given you the cons. In my personal opinion, I would not focus my time and energy on epoxy tables. Now, with that being said, if somebody came to me and they said, hey, I want this epoxy table, I'm going to quote that person enough money so that it's worth my time and energy to take on the job, right? You know, let's say that at $10,000, it's profitable, but I know that it's going to slow me down. It's going to be kind of a pain in the neck. It's going to be kind of a challenge. I'm going to quote them $12,000. And if they don't say yes, that's okay. I don't want to take on epoxy work and barely get by and barely make any money or not make money. I would rather focus on what I was good at, which was dimensional lumber, dimensional style tables in general. And so traditionally speaking here, the same amount of time that it would take me to build, say, an $8,000 or $10,000 epoxy table, I could build 2 to 3 dimensional lumber tables and chair sets, and it wouldn't throw a giant kink in my team, my production schedule. So I would rather focus on that. There's less room for error, and generally speaking, things just tend to go a little bit smoother. And so this is my personal opinion on epoxy river tables. What are your takes on it? I would love to hear from you. For those of you guys that have been successful, that have built some epoxy river tables, what were the things that you loved about it? What were some of the things that were challenges? Would love to hear from you in the comments below. So for all of you that are watching, I got a couple resources for you. Number one is my completely free book. Check it out in the first link in the description below. It's the Handmade Business Secrets book, and it really just outlines my journey from starting to ultimately scaling my woodworking business to $70,000 to $75,000 per month, and how you can do the same thing. So it's totally free. First link in the description. Just enter your name and email, and we'll get that sent over to you. Number two is the Handmade Hero Academy program. So if you're a brand new beginner and you're trying to get started finding a good product to sell, you want to test that product in the market, you want to develop some marketing strategies around it, you want to learn how to take great photos and videos, put together a plan to get that product out there, build a website. These are the types of principles that we cover inside of the program. It's a low-cost program. You sell one high-ticket product as a result of what you learn inside of that program. It more than pays for itself. So go check that out. And then number three is our flagship program, the Woodworking Business Accelerator program. So if you are serious about growing your woodworking or custom furniture business to $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 per month, be sure to check that out. That's where we're going to be working with you one-on-one, helping you really scale and build something special inside of your business. And so with that, love you guys. Appreciate you. If you haven't subscribed yet, what are you doing? Make sure that you do that. And I will see you guys in the next video.